Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Louisiana State Board of Social Work Examiners. Meetings being called to order. Today is Friday, March 8th, 2024. I might add, today is International Women's Day. So for all the women that's out there, thank you so much for just being you, because you are super. And I will add that this is also Social Workers Month. So all the social workers that are out there, thank you so much for what you do for the public. So if you are a woman and a social worker, that is 2 snaps and 2 claps. So that's us. I don't care. All right, let's look around. So thank you so much for everything that you do for the public and all that you give to the world. With that being said, I'm going to ask for our roll call for this morning.
Roll call. Hyacinth McKee.
Present.
Jamie Barney.
Present.
Kevin Bergeron.
Present.
Melissa Haley.
Present.
Trinity George.
Present.
Candy Saraparu. Dorothy Terry. Present.
And we also have our legal counsel here, Sherry Morris, as well as our prosecuting attorney, James Raines, and our administrator, Emily D'Angelo. We have is that our tech person, or what's your name?
My name is Luke Corley. I'm providing IT tech support for Mr. Jim Raines.
Thank you so much. And we have Luke that's here providing IT services. We also have members of the public in person with us today. You do not need to state your name, but thank you for your attendance. At this time, I will ask that the meeting expectations be read by our consumer member.
A public comment period will be permitted for each agenda item requiring a vote. Members of the public who wish to provide public comment may use the raise hand function to be recognized by the chair. Any one person may provide public comment only once per agenda item. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Public comments are limited to the item being considered by the board. The chair may disregard or terminate any public comment that does not comply with this paragraph. Attendees of the public portion of the meeting can attain a maximum of 1 hour of continuing education and ethics and 1 hour of general continuing education. An email regarding continuing education credit will be sent within 30 days following the meeting.
Thank you so much. With that being said, at this time, I am going to open the floor for any public comments pertaining to the agenda. Okay, hearing no public comment pertaining to the agenda. Before I move to ask for a motion to approve this agenda, I need to add something to this. Under item 7A, let's just make it a 7A1 or either, let's make it 7H. Forgot to put the information about the task force, the suicide prevention task force. The report is finalized. We have been working on it for at least the past 6 months, and it's been finalized. So I need to add on 7H to be task force suicide prevention report. That's from for HCR 84. Okay. And that's the only addition I need to make to the agenda.
I move to amend the agenda to add 7H.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Evan to add that 7H for that task force report to be added, seconded by Trinity. Any public comment? Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. So now I need a motion to approve the agenda as is.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Melissa to approve the agenda with the corrections and adjustments. Second by Trinity. Public comment to this motion?
No public comment.
Objections or abstentions? None noted. Motion carries. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the presentation of consent and agreement orders from our prosecuting attorney, James Raines. We will be, receiving the information on 2A, Deanna Coleman, file 221-2021-174.
All right, this one is Ms. Coleman. She's license number 13197. We received a complaint, or the board initiated a complaint against Ms. Coleman based on an audit of her continuing education credits through June 30 of 2020. And it was found that she failed to provide proof of completing the required ethics over that 2-year period of time. And Ms. Coleman reported that she completed 3 hours of ethics of continuing ed in October 28 of 2018. She did not report completion of another 3 hours of ethics until May 31 of 2021. So it was approximately 2 years and 7 months later. So she's agreed to a consent order whereby she would be reprimanded. She will pay a fine in the amount of $500, cost of $585. She's going to take and pass the board's open book examination on the practice act and rules. And that's basically the terms of this one.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding the consent agreement order for Deanna Coleman.
So moved.
Moved by Melissa, seconded by Trini. Any public comment pertaining to the motion on the floor? Objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, we'll hear presentation of CA&O for Shirley Falvey.
Okay, Ms. Falvey is license number 14225, complaint number 2022-35. In August of 21, the board received a self-report from Ms. Falvey based on a stipulation and consent order that she entered into with the Mississippi Board of Examiners of Social Workers and Marriage and Family Therapists, where she acknowledged she had an inappropriate relationship with a client that included responding to an online dating post of the client, exchanging emails, text messages, and telephone calls of a personal nature with that client that were unrelated to treatment. So this was all online and over the phone communications. This conduct occurred between July 1 of 2016 and December 31st of 2016. And she admits that she engaged in that inappropriate relationship with the client, which included responding to the post, exchanging emails, text messages, and telephone calls of a personal nature. She's already served discipline in the state of Mississippi, and we were notified kind of on the tail end after she had done that. So what we said was she would be engaged, her ability to practice is put on probation, and that probation will run concurrent with any probationary period as required by the Mississippi Board. She will be released from probation after receipt of successful completion of probation in the state of Mississippi. She must follow the supervision guidelines as agreed to in her October 21, 2020 stipulation and consent order with the Mississippi Board. She shall pass the board's open book exam on the Social Work Practice Act and rules. She will pay cost of $1,000. And that's it. Or this. Any questions?
At this time, I entertain a motion regarding Shirley Falvey's consent agreement in order.
Oh, Melissa.
It's been moved by Evan, seconded by Trinity. Any public comment pertaining to this motion? Objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Next, we'll hear the CA&O regarding Crystal Kelly.
This is complaint number 2022-47 for license number 11213. We did a board initiated complaint against Ms. Kelly based upon a notification by the Department of Public Safety and Corrections that she had been arrested on December 30, 2021 for domestic abuse and battery. And she did admit to that, and she admitted that she failed to report the arrest within 7 days, which is the violation here. And so she's agreed that her license will be reprimanded. She will pay a fine in the amount of $250, that she will pay cost of $200. She will have to take continuing education of 3 hours in ethics and take the board's open book examination. That's the entirety of the agreement.
Any questions regarding the consent order before I entertain a motion? Any questions? Do I have a motion regarding the CAUNO, for Crystal Kelly?
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's been moved by Trinity. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Janie. Any public comment pertaining to this motion on the floor? Objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Next, we'll hear the consent and agreement order for Jada Daniels.
This is, complaint number 2023-51, license number 16135. The board received a complaint against Ms. Daniels in October of 2022, and it described concerns that she engaged in an unprofessional conduct whereby she falsely billed Medicaid for services provided to an individual who was deceased on 3 dates. Ms. Daniels was notified of the complaint. She is a CSW. This individual died on May 21 of 2022. Services were on May 23 of 2022, June 1st, and June 8th. What she admits to is that she provided services to an individual that she believed was this person to whom she was assigned. That is the only admission she will make about it. She says she did therapy with an individual on those dates. So what we did was we entered into a stipulation whereby her license would be put on probation for a minimum of 1 year. She has to be supervised by a BACS for 1 time a month for 1 hour for a period of 1 year, and that license will remain on probation during that period of time. She must take the open book exam. She has to complete 6 hours of continuing education and ethics. She has to pay a cost of $1,452.50, and she has to pay a fine of $500.
Any questions regarding the consent and agreement order? I'll entertain a motion regarding the consent and agreement order for Jada Daniels. It's been moved by Boer. Is there a second? Second by Evan. Any public comment pertaining to that motion? Objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Now we'll hear the consent and agreement order for Benjamin Larissy.
This is complaint number 2023-64 for license number 11772. We received a complaint from a therapist who shared a client with Mr. Larissy, and it alleged that he had an inappropriate relationship with a client where he invited the client to his office in the evening at 8:30 and asked her to bring a bottle of wine. And his admission is that between November 7 and November 20 of 2022, he engaged in an inappropriate dual relationship with a client, which included the exchanging of text messages and calls of a personal nature with the client that were unrelated to the client's treatment. So we have agreed that his license will be put on probation for a period of 2.5 years. His BACS designation will be revoked. He may reapply for that designation at the conclusion of his probationary period. He must be supervised by a BACS during his probation 1 time per month for 1 hour for 30 months. That BACS must make quarterly reports on his progress to the board, and he agrees to release to the BACS the disciplinary record and any documentation associated with the complaint, and further releases and allows the disciplinary committee to communicate with that BACS, who's the supervisor. He has to complete 6 hours of continuing education in the area of boundaries. He has to pay a fine of $500, and he has to pay costs of $52.50. And that's the terms of this agreement.
Any questions regarding the consent and agreement order?
Yes, I know usually when, persons apply for the BACS designation, it doesn't necessarily come before the board. In this situation, would his application come to the board to get the BACS back if he were to reapply for it at a later date? Or how would,
He had met all the qualifications of what's outlined. We would have approved it unless it said otherwise in the consent agreement in order.
Is it required in an agreement that he goes back through the BATS training? If he applies, would he have to go back through the training?
It's not specifically part of the agreement that it says that.
It seems to me that that would be appropriate if it doesn't have to come before the board, that he would at least have to do the training. Go back.
Right, it just says he may reapply for the back designation at the conclusion.
For reinstatement, don't you have to go back through the training?
Okay.
The rule requires that.
Well, let me also ask, what determines the fine? Like, what determines what an individual pays or how you come to that decision?
The committee discusses it and comes up with the amount. So it's Emily, our police coordinator, Lisa, as well as I am on that group.
So is it based on like a precedent, like if it's in a certain category, is certain?
Yes, there's criteria.
Okay,
And they've got historically, what have we done in these situations, that kind of thing.
okay,
Right.
thank you.
Ask that before they submit.
Okay.
Are there any other questions pertaining to this consent agreement and order? All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve this consent.
It's been moved by Trinity to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Evan. Any public comments pertaining to the motion on the floor? Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agreement in order for Destiny Gary.
This complaint number 2023-90, license number 16379. We received a complaint from an employee at Victory Addiction Recovery Center, which alleged that Ms. Gary was involved in an inappropriate romantic relationship with a patient while employed at FARC. Ms. Gary and the patient allegedly moved in together after the patient left FARC, was the allegation. And Ms. Gary has admitted that she entered into an inappropriate romantic relationship with this patient and eventually moved in with the individual. So she has agreed to the following discipline: that her license, which is license number 16379, is hereby revoked for a period of 5 years. She's going to pay a fine in the amount of $1,000. She has to pay costs of $1,170.50. She shall not reapply for licensure until the completion of her revocation. At that time, she may submit a reinstatement application, complete 20 hours of approved social work continuing education, and complete the board exam on the Practice Act and rules. That's basically the terms of hers.
Any questions regarding this consent agreement? At this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding this consent agreement order.
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Evans to approve, second by Trinity. Any public comment pertaining to this motion? Objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is a hearing that we have scheduled for 9 a.m. I do want to note that one of the hearing panel members that was previously assigned to this hearing is absent at this time, and Dr. Jamie Borning will be subbing for Candice Rapparu for this hearing panel. Also, the hearing starts at 9 o'clock. We are at 8:50, and so we are going to just take a brief 5-minute pause in preparation for the hearing, and then certainly be right back on at 9 a.m. to conduct the hearing. Okay, thank you. If you could just, or somebody just mute it real quick to give us that 5-minute pause to prepare. Thank you.
hearing or, you know?
Right, so Evan, you can, go sit in my office and you're not on the.
Yeah, I'm out.
Here's the timeout.
He's a timeout.
Fine, I'm fine with that.
Here you get to work.
He's on timeout. Okay.
For the record, you don't want to call the roll.
Yeah, I'll call it roll again. All right, so we're back on?
Yes.
All right, so greetings, everyone. Thank you for that brief pause. At this time, we are returning at 8:59, and I'm going to ask for a quick roll call. President?
J.D. Barney.
Present.
John. Not present. Melissa Haley.
Present.
Trinity George.
Present.
And Lucy Rockbrew. Laura Sunseri, present.
Okay, also our legal counsel Sherry Morris is present, as well as our prosecuting attorney James Rains and our administrator Emily D'Angelo. At this time, we are going to proceed with the hearing for administrative complaint 2023103, CW 2023154, Heather Anthony. Not certain if Miss Anthony is present via Zoom, I believe. This would be a.
So it appears that she is not. The only person that is in the waiting room is one witness that we have. So you remember we tried to do this last month and she had a Zoom issue. But we have not, just so the board is aware, I've reached out to her by email. I've also called her multiple times. The phone numbers that she gave us in November as her new phone numbers this week were no longer working. So we have been unable to talk to her, haven't been able to reach her. So I don't really expect her to show, but we can.
Do we have evidence that she was notified, that she was sent notice of the hearing date and or received it?
So it was sent by certified mail as well as regular mail. She did not pick up the certified mail. The return mail or the regular mail, that as I understand it, was not returned back to the office.
Correct.
She was also emailed multiple times to the email address that she's been using to communicate with us, a copy of the notice as well. And that's never been rejected by the email server or the email address that we've used to communicate with her in the past.
What date did the letters go out?
Emily,
January 11th.
and Emily, do we have a way of tracking whether that email was opened by the recipient? Do we have a way of tracking that? If we are, whether it was received by the recipient? I know Outlook or.
Like a read receipt?
Yeah, like a read receipt. Do we send that here? When we
I
send-
don't know if I asked for a
Oh, okay.
receipt.
Okay.
Somebody could reject the receipt, so even if you send something by receipt, the person doesn't have to. Let you know they're.
More information, but the board's obligation is to send certified mail to the address of record. And so, of course, that's also can be rejected.
I just wanted to make sure we were doing our due diligence and we made all efforts possible. And it appears that we did.
And for the board's information, and it will show you in a bit, but she's moved to Elkhart, Indiana. And that's the address that we sent it to, which is the address, is our address of record now for her.
We have a witness, James, are we wanting to just proceed with that witness at this time?
So what we're gonna do, because there's a rule that says that we can't use Zoom for disciplinary proceedings. So we weren't gonna use the witness by Zoom unless Miss Anthony showed up and waived the whole Zoom rule.
Okay,
So instead of using that witness, we're just gonna have Emily testify to all matters related to this hearing. So if y'all are good with that, I'm just gonna get on and let Ms. Thibodeau know that we're gonna let her go, that we don't need to use her, and then we'll proceed with Emily.
Okay. We'll do that.
Hey Denise, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, she didn't show up, so we're gonna let you go, but we appreciate you showing up as a witness today.
Thank
Oh, wait,
you.
wait, never mind, Miss Anthony just popped on. Surprise, okay,
This is good. Thank you.
yeah, so just hold on, she just popped on. So, yeah, we'll be back in touch with you in just a few minutes if you would stay on.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Very surprised. Yeah, let's bring Miss Anthony in. Hey, Miss Anthony, can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear us okay? It says your bandwidth is low, so I don't know if you can hear us or not.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Okay, there. We're gonna turn you up a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Everybody hear her okay?
Yeah, we can hear it good.
Yes.
So,
Do you want, once you start?
So Ms. Anthony, I'm Sherry Morris, counsel to the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's my understanding that you requested, because you have moved out of state, to have this disciplinary hearing conducted via video conference. Is that accurate?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, I need you to answer audibly. You can't see, but we have a court reporter in the room, and so everything that will be said during the hearing will be recorded by the court reporter. So, make sure it's, a lot of us shake our heads and we understand what you're trying to convey to us, but we need you to answer audibly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So as you know, Mr. Raines is, the board's counsel for disciplinary cases, and he will be making a presentation. He has some exhibits. Did you provide these exhibits to Miss Anthony, Mr. Raines?
Did prior to the last hearing, the only thing new would be the notice that she received relative to today.
Okay, can you hear Mr. Raines?
I cannot.
Okay, I'll go back.
So Mr. Raines said that he had provided you with the exhibits that he's handing out to the board members prior to the last hearing date that we were unable to go forward with. And he added to those exhibits just the new notice for today's hearings. Do you have access to those exhibits?
I do, yes, ma'am.
All right, so you might want to get those where you can access them as we go through the hearing. Mr. Raines is going to put on his case. He's going to call, I believe, Ms. D'Angelo as his first witness.
I'll call. Say what, let's call Denise Thibodeau first.
Okay, he's going to call Ms. Denise Thibodeau, who is also via video conference, as his first witness. He will question Ms. Thibodeau, and when he finishes, you will have the opportunity to cross-examine Ms. Thibodeau if there's anything that you want to ask Ms. Thibodeau. All witnesses will testify under oath. And then at the end of Mr. Raines's case, you will have the opportunity to present any witnesses or evidence on your behalf. Or if you just wish to make a statement, you can do that. I should have asked you in the beginning, do you have legal counsel who will be participating?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, so if you want at the end to make a statement on your own behalf, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Do you have any questions about the procedure?
Many, but not at this time.
Okay, so, Mr. Raines, can you call your first witness and we'll ask the court reporter to swear the witness?
Okay, sure. First witness is Denise Thibodeau. right, Ms. Thibodeau, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have the court reporter swear you in, okay?
Ms. Thibodeau, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thibodeau, again, I'm Jim Raines. I'm the attorney for the board. If you would, just please state your name and business address for the record.
Denise Thibodeau, 7384 John LeBlanc Boulevard, Minnesota, Louisiana, 70778.
And do you know, our licensee, Heather Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you know her?
She was employed briefly with us at the drug implementation.
So one of the things that the board has provided, and I'll refer to it as Exhibit 1, is a complaint that we received at the social work board from you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And is your place of business the Grove Recovery Center? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now this complaint that is in front of us, do you have a copy of that? Or can I just ask you about it?
Yeah. Have a copy of it.
It indicates that Miss Anthony was hired on December 19 of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is your capacity at the Grove? Or are you the owner?
I am the one of the owners and the clinical director.
Okay. So Miss Anthony was hired on December 19 of 2022. How long did she work with you?
Well, I was just adding up, I have the time card here. She, I counted 18 total days, work days. So, that, you know, of course, adding weekends probably goes to about a month.
Okay. So approximately a month that she worked for you. Now, can you explain to the board and just kind of maybe tell the story of why you filed the complaint, relative to, Miss Anthony?
Well, as a licensed professional counselor, I'm bound by, reporting any type of, discrepancy with clinician, licensed clinician. Since she was a licensed, clinical social worker, I, felt I needed to report some, discrepancies that she had while she was here. One being, her drug test result that led to her, termination. And then there were some other things included in the letter. I don't know if we want to talk about, everything you had said we were gonna, the complaint was focusing on the drug screen.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll focus on the drug screen portion of the complaint for today. So, and I'll offer as Exhibit 1, the complaint filed by, Ms. Thibodeau.
All right, so we'll mark that as Board Exhibit 1. Ms. Anthony, do you have any objection to Board Exhibit 1?
I do not have any objection. No,
Thank you.
So if you would, we'll turn to tab number 2. Ms. Thibodeau, in association with the complaint that you filed with the board, you also provided some paperwork to the board, including a drug test and other various documents. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. Now, I've got a drug screen that appears dated January 31 of 2023. Is that the one that we provided to the board?
That is the one.
Okay. And can you tell me about how the drug screen was conducted?
Yes, so, on that date, she, we go to staffing every morning, and so, all the counselors and whoever can attend morning meeting, our morning staffing. And she appeared, very drowsy, falling asleep, looked, something was off. And so in addition, there were some behaviors that led up to that, frequent, even early absenteeism, kind of just being all over the place and not, uh, she was, her behavior would be that. And so, we, chose to drug screen her every month, because of the behavior and because she was nodding out and that. And so, this drug screen are, monitored, so she didn't take it alone, she took it with, I believe it was Mr. Treatment, Bill Fox, find it. And she's our office manager. And so, the typed up one I gave you, it is 131, and has check mark. That's the instant screen, that is given that day. And if that instant screen is been, tested positive in any way, we send it off for a line of confirmation. And so it did test positive that day for fentanyl, alcohol, amphetamines, and marijuana. They're all checked off on that, sheet. And so we did send it off, because, we wanted confirmation. And so the send off version is the, one that is, printed from, clinical pathology laboratory. And it did come back, confirmed positive for, amphetamine and fentanyl and THC.
Okay, so, and the exam that was performed, that drug screen that was performed that day, you said it was witnessed by your office manager?
Yeah.
Okay, so you always do a witnessed examination?
Always, with every staff member and client. So, it's not unusual that we did that, we do it with everyone.
So performing drug screens is not something new to your office, that's something that you all, do on a fairly frequent basis?
Daily basis.
Okay. So
Daily basis.
you sent that off to, clinical pathology laboratories, and is that the place that you typically use to do confirmatory tests?
Yes.
Okay,
CPL, also called CPL.
all right. And so CPL came back and you had a confirmatory test showing positive of amphetamines, THC and fentanyl, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, a minute ago, you mentioned a time card report that you provided to the board as well, and that's the last page of Exhibit 2. So if we've got the time card report in front of us as well, and it shows time entries for Miss Anthony from December 29 through January 30, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and so on the left-hand column where we see all of the days listed, it looks like there's 8 days that are highlighted. Can you explain to the board why you have highlighted those 8 days?
They're not, 8-hour days. So there's, 18 total days there, and out of them, 8 days were not full days. She left early, on those days. And then on the side, I'm thinking it's on yours as well, she missed 2 full days. So out of those 18 days, she missed 2 days and she left, 8 times early. And you know, within your first 90 days of employment, we look at absenteeism, and this is not even 90 days, this is 18 days.
So out of those first days, you only had 7 days where she worked a full day, and then you had 10 days where she was either leaving early or she failed to show, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And those were days where she was scheduled to work for a full 8-hour day?
She was. She did tell us when she was leaving, and she always had a reason. She didn't just leave, but, it just was very good.
And so, based on the drug screen and the conduct of Miss Anthony during the meeting on that day where you saw her nodding off, and I guess was there other conduct that resulted in your decision about her employment?
Well, just whenever, we took the incident, we told her that she was gonna have to, not report to work until we get the, confirmation from the lab. That's what we do with everybody. So if we get a positive from a incident, you are suspended until you get the confirmation from the lab. So upon the, exit of her, she gathered a few things, she got in her car. And, Crystal, the HR manager, was explaining that to her. And she made the statement, there's no need for right now. And so, when she made that statement, we took that as an admission.
And so, I take it that her employment was terminated with you, is that correct?
It was.
And after that day, did you hear back from Miss Anthony at all?
Not from her, about her years, but not from her.
And then subsequent to that, you, based on all of the information that you had, you made the report to the board, correct?
I did. Again, I'm as trained as a licensed professional counselor, not an owner, not a clinical director, but my license. I'm trained that I am bound to report any discrepancies I see with other licensing. Whether I'm a director or not, if I'm a coworker and I see discrepancies, I'm bound to it.
Thank you, and we'll call for Exhibit 2 in association with the witness's testimony.
Right. Miss Anthony, the drug screen, the initial drug screen, the confirmation drug screen, and the time card are being offered as board exhibit 2. Do you have any objection?
I do not have any objection.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, so I'll pass the witness.
Miss Anthony, do you have any questions for Miss Thibodeau?
I do. So on the drug screen, the initial drug screen, the first report came back as being testing positive for, as your complaint states, ma'am, amphetamine, THC, MDMA, and fentanyl. Correct?
Yes, my letter did say that, but, as I look at your test, I do not see the MDMA on it. So that part is incorrect, the other 4 ones are not.
Right.
I was told,
And then when the board tested it, I'm sorry?
I was told, MDMA, informed that verbally. That's how I got that information. But when I actually looked at the test, it's not,
Okay, so there's an inconsistency in this drug test all of a sudden. I do remember the HR lady, Miss Crystal, she took the test and she went away from me and she went and tested it somewhere else. I was not present for that test. I did not see any markings on the stuff that indicated the test cup was mine. So when I handed it back to her, and then the test results come back as one thing, and it's reported as such, and then tested later again in a different in the lab, and it comes back as something different. When the board tested it, it came back the third time as something different. My only concern is the inconsistencies in the test. What makes it accurate and what is true?
I don't understand when you say the board tested it.
There's 3 different test results. So which ones do we go off of? I know what I've taken and what I've taken, and I offered that, and as proof of what I had been taking and told you from day one. So that's what I know I've taken, and I can verify that. Anything else I have not. But the test results are coming back inconsistent.
Well,
That's my opinion.
I can't testify to what the board tested you for. I don't even have that report. The test that we took, we followed all procedures. We do not read the results in front of the person that we tested. It is always read in private place amongst the staff member. It did test positive for these things. Now, the only inconsistency that you may find is alcohol. The other ones are all on there. Amphetamines, THC, and fentanyl, are all on the lab report. And so, the lab report to me is, what we go by. The laboratory. And sometimes there may be a positive that is thrown on the instant test, like, the alcohol. And so, that's why we need to do the lab, make sure it's,
As well, when I first started working for you, I was open and honest about sitting in that same office there and explained to you what was going on in my life at the time, right? About my separation from my husband, the domestic violence, the court appearances I was having to make, the subpoenas with the judge, the meetings I had to make. I in fact worked for you in your other office in Baton Rouge when there was a problem with me attending those subpoenaed court hearings with the judge. And there was an issue and I had to leave that place of employment. And then you called me back and offered me the job there in your other facility, correct?
correct.
Okay, so you knew that there was a lot going on in my life at the time. I had gained custody of my 2 children and I was learning to live on my own, having to find a place within 3 days or 4 days, I think it was at the time. It wasn't able to take off any time early to go do that or to get the children or to do anything in my life. And I was having a hard time with that. And I expressed that to you, right?
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
we were definitely going through a hard time, and the behavior shows that you're going through a hard time.
I just wanted to make sure that was true and get your input on that. Thank you.
Want me to?
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for Ms. Thibodeau?
Yes. Ms. Thibodeau, you said that you knew what you took and you have proof of what you took. What did you mean by that?
This is for Ms. Thibodeau.
I'm sorry. No, I don't have a question about it.
Yes. I just wanted clarification. I think it's a typo, but on a complaint on Exhibit 1, it asks the date the problem first began and the date the relationship as December 19, 2023. Should that be December 19, 2022? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. And then my next question is on the drug screen, the instant drug screen sheet with the checkoffs. Is that whiteout used on the screen where alcohol is?
I'm just looking at a copy. I'm not looking at an original, but I do see that it is marked out like a line drawn down, being all negative, and it looks like it is marked down on alcohol, and it's checked next to it positive. So, all I can gather from that would be that they, as they were reading the screen, it may have looked, negative, and then someone else might have been negative.
Would the lab test results have picked up alcohol if, is that something that would have been reported out on the lab testing? If it was positive?
That's why I said, so obviously the incident picked up alcohol, but that could have been something, false that it flew, and that's why we verified with the lab. And the lab did not pick up alcohol.
Okay.
It did pick up the fentanyl, amphetamine, and the yes.
Okay, thank you.
I do want, Ms. Thibodeau, how long did, Ms. Anthony work for you at the first location?
It was brief, I don't believe, and I can pull up that time card as well. I don't have it with me at the moment, but, I can't. I don't have that information exactly how long, it was very brief.
But during that time, her performance was adequate enough to rehire her at a different location?
She, was leaving, and it was not okay with general, they didn't have eyes on her, so I thought I'd give her another chance, and we'd have more eyes on her, since she's my, and, I wanted to have more eyes on her, I wanted to give her a chance, she's, licensed, she had a lot of offers, she said, her interview with me, it was a really good interview, so, at the time, I wanted.
One more, thank you so much for your time. I just have one more question. With the attendance, do you guys have a policy or do you give instructions with your expectations for attendance during that probationary period of the first 90 days?
Yes, whenever HR meets with the new hire, they go over that they're on a 90-day probationary period, and that, absenteeism, is not, really acceptable, frowned upon, unless it's excused, but this was excessive absenteeism. She did have court, she did have to get an apartment, she did have to get the kids enrolled in school. She had lots of things that she had to do. But again, it was almost half the time she was here, she left early.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Ms. Thibodeau. Ms. Thibodeau, when your agency, your clinic hires new employees, do you drug screen them as well as do criminal background checks?
We do.
So she passed her drug screens for the initial employment?
We did.
And during that interview period or that newly hiring onboarding, Ms. Anthony disclosed to you what was going on in her home life?
She did, she said she was going through a divorce and she was a victim of domestic violence. Okay.
And I know you haven't pulled the time card and you don't know exactly how long she worked at the first clinic, but when you say briefly, are you talking days, months?
Days.
Days, okay.
A week.
All right, so days, not months. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, the reason she was terminated was, positive, but, yes, she had other behavior that led up to those drug screens, and her being tested again, that quickly after her new hire. But, ultimately, that's the terminated her.
Just for clarity, she worked for you twice and she took 2 drug tests and she passed them both before she was hired?
Yeah, I have those, screens, and I think that higher rate for y'all, but she was a bit higher than she did.
Thank you.
The question about the 2 drug screens, were the two drug screens were for each location, or I'm confused, because if she'd only been at one
Well,
location for,
I can't actually 100% tell you if there was two, because it was so short between. She was hired, and I know she had a drug screen on hire.
so at
And
least
always
one.
had a drug screen on hire, as well as a CT test, as well as, background check. That was done. When I transferred her to the other facility, her paperwork is still in effect. So she may not have been drug screened again, but it was not a big, period in between the two, items. If I had those dates, it was within the same month. It's not next week.
So as a
And
stand,
I'd like to object to that, there were no initial drug screens at time of hire for either facility. And when approached by Ms. Crystal from HR at the Ascension location, the second facility I worked at, she initially approached me saying that was because she had forgotten to give me the drug test at time of hire. It was not because of any behavior or anything going on, and it was not because of that. That's not what she said. So I would like to object.
Okay, so, Ms. Anthony, you'll have an opportunity at the end after all the witnesses to give any information to the board at that point.
Ms. Thibodeau,
Yes.
you've mentioned that there were other behaviors. Can you elaborate about the other behaviors that Ms. Anthony has displayed? You've mentioned that several times.
Yeah, and in my letter to, the board, my complaint to the board is in there. That was, behaviors after termination. Well, after termination, but before I wrote the letter. And it led to me writing the letter, urged me to even write it even more. So she was, I guess I should elaborate on it since you asked me. She had been terminated. So when she was hired, when she was working for us, she was running a male group. And so she had male clients. And when she was terminated, she was seen, picking up one of those, or actually dropping off one of those male clients at his sober living house. The client was in her group at the time, and he was questioned by his sober living director. And it was very obviously it was her because she was driving a red sports car at the time that she had rented because she had totaled her car or had gotten a wreck, or another one of her accidents was because of her car situation. Something had happened with the car. And so she was driving like a red Mustang, and it was a rental. She dropped him off in that red Mustang, at the sober living house. He was questioned where he'd been all day. To leave the sober living house, you have to have permission, and they didn't know where he was. He said he was with Miss Anthony the whole day, having relations.
I have a question.
So that was reported, as well.
And Sherry, can I point out something for the board? So there was a summary suspension of her license by the board last August. And when y'all did that, it was not based on the issue that she just talked about. It was just on the drugs and that kind of, because there's another complaint that we're gonna talk about. So it was about those complaints, but not about the relationship issue just now. So she hasn't been noticed or summarily suspended on that issue. Okay, just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
That's important. I have no question.
Okay.
Mr. Raines, do you have another witness?
I do. Let me just ask, just a couple of follow-up questions with Ms. Thibodeau before we let her go. Ms. Thibodeau, when you wrote your complaint, you wrote MDMA on there, but MDMA was never something that was part of the first test. There was never a positive MDMA, correct?
That's correct. That seems to have been an error on my part.
Right. So there was no inconsistency about MDMA being on the first test and then a second test, right? The confirmatory test. Right.
It was, whenever I wrote the letter, I, had asked, my, health manager and, HR what the test, tested for. I didn't actually put my eyes on the test when I wrote the letter. And so I just verbally said, so what's that test for? And I typed it up. Now that I see it, and I have my eyes on the test, it is not on.
Just so that we can maybe clarify something for Ms. Anthony, after you did the drug test, I know you sent it off to have a confirmatory test done. You did not also send that sample to the board to be tested, correct?
No.
Okay, so the board's never tested the test sample that you have, right?
No.
Okay, it seemed like there might have been confusion there, so I'm trying to clear that up.
Thank you.
And then when you terminated Miss Anthony, did you believe that she was competent and safe to practice social work?
No, I did not.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. All right, Ms. Thibodeau, thank you so much. We're gonna let you go. All right, I'll call my next witness, which is Emily D'Angelo.
Do you swear affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
If you would, please state your name and business address for the record.
Emily D'Angelo, 18550 Highland Road, Suite B, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70809.
And what is your role with the board?
I'm the administrator for the board, and one of my roles is to be part of the complaint process team.
And were you indeed part of the complaint process team dealing with the complaints involving Miss Heather Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. You just heard Miss Thibodeau testify. Did you receive what we have as Exhibit 1, the complaint filed by Miss Thibodeau?
Yes.
And that's something that was reviewed by the team, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you would turn to Exhibit 2, please. You see in front of you the documentation that Ms. Thibodeau to the board in support of the allegations in the complaint, and was that also reviewed and processed by the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Let's turn to Exhibit 3, if you would, please. Please explain to the board, this is a letter dated February 16 of 2023. What does the letter do?
This letter noticed Ms. Anthony of the complaint filed by Denise Thibodeau, and it provided her with the possible violations.
Okay, so when you send this, do you also send a copy of the complaint to the respondent or the licensee, Ms. Anthony?
Yes.
And that was done in this instance?
Yes.
Okay. And this is relative to complaint 2023-103, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll offer this as Exhibit 3.
Ms. Anthony, do you have any objection to what's being offered as Board Exhibit 3, the letter that was sent to you notifying you of the complaint?
I do not have any objections.
Thank you.
As the complaint process went on, and there's an investigative process to any complaint that you receive, is that right? An investigator, and sometimes they will interview people, and sometimes they acquire documentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So is it fair to say that this process was going on, and while it was going on, did you receive a second complaint regarding Miss Anthony?
Yes. I received a second complaint on June 14th, 2023 from Stephen Morphew.
If you turn to Exhibit 4 for those that are not there, is Exhibit 4 a copy of that next complaint that you received from Mr. Morphew?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, and this complaint was from Mr. Morphew. Is he employed with Pathways? Is that right?
Family Preservation Services Assertive Community Treatment Team.
Oh, okay, so that was, Miss Anthony was hired to be as a social worker with that team. Is that correct?
Okay, yes.
And what was the basic nature of the complaint that Mr. Morphew made regarding Miss Anthony?
It was his belief that Miss Anthony was under the influence of substances based on what he describes as the following behaviors: falling asleep in the office at her computer, falling asleep in vehicles with other staff members after taking handfuls of medications, slurred speech, little to no eye contact in most interactions. In some cases, her eyes were observed to roll in the back of her head as if she was going in and out of consciousness. Open wounds in and around drug use sites combined with skin picking, agitated mood, combined with extreme mood swings with little to no trigger.
And in the second line of the details of the complaint, how long did he indicate that she had been working there?
21 days.
And then below the paragraph that you were just reading from, was Miss Anthony, did he indicate that Miss Anthony was terminated from her employment with them?
Yes, he indicated that she was terminated June 14th, 23, due to refusal to comply with the drug screening. Her refusal is seen by their company as an admission of guilt.
So this complaint was received and was it docketed as a new complaint against Miss Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. And so we'll offer an association with the testimony, Exhibit 4.
Ms. Anthony, do you have any objection to Exhibit 4?
I do not have any objection, ma'am. No.
Thank you.
If you would turn to Exhibit 5, please. Okay, before us is a letter dated June 14 of 2023, and it says on the top right-hand corner, file number 2023-103 combined with 2023-154. To Ms. Anthony, can you explain to the board what this letter was about?
So this letter was a notice of the new complaint and to re-notice her for the first complaint because I hadn't heard from her yet. So I just combined the complaint with Denise Thibodeau with the complaint from Stephen Morphew.
So when you receive a complaint and you put the respondent licensee on notice of the complaint, do you request within a certain time frame a response from them, correct?
Yes, I ask them to respond to the complaint within 15 days of their receipt of the letter.
And you had already noticed, Ms. Anthony, of the first complaint, and is it correct that you did not receive a response to her as of the date of January 14, 2023?
Right.
Okay. We'll offer that as Exhibit 5.
Ms. Anthony, do you have any objection to Exhibit 5?
I do not have any objection, ma'am. No.
Thank you.
You return to Exhibit 6, please. After receiving the second complaint on Ms. Anthony, which was again related to substance issues, was her case brought before the board at the board meeting on August 11 of 2023?
Yes.
Okay, and what occurred at that meeting, if you will, just briefly?
So the board received the information of the complaints and what the complaints consisted of, and do I say what they did?
Yeah.
Oh, so, and they issued a summary suspension of her license.
Okay, so I see two things here. The first page of this Exhibit 6, it looks like an email. So can you explain who you sent the email to?
I sent the email to Miss Anthony.
And that was on August 15 of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
That was a notification of the summary suspension of her license.
Yes.
And that findings of fact and conclusions of law was signed by the board chair on August 15th, 2023, which is the same day that you emailed it to Ms. Anthony, correct?
That's correct.
We'll offer the findings of fact in the email as Exhibit 6.
Ms. Anthony, do you have any objection to Board Exhibit 6?
I do not have an objection.
Return to Exhibit 7 for me. In association with the investigation that was done in the cases against Ms. Anthony, did you have issued a subpoena ducis tecum to the lab that performed the confirmatory test on Ms. Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the same lab that, well, that's the lab that conducted the confirmatory test, which is the one that Ms. Thibodeau testified about, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is a copy of that subpoena, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll offer the subpoena as Exhibit 7.
Anthony, do you have any objection to Exhibit 7?
I do not have an objection.
We'll turn to Exhibit 8, please. We see at Exhibit 8, a letter dated September 21, 2023 from Clinical Pathology Laboratories. And as you flip through, they provide a certification of those medical records, and then it's a copy of the confirmatory test relative to Ms. Anthony. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is the documentation received from Clinical Pathology Labs the same that was provided from Ms. Thibodeau? It's the same
Yes.
exact confirmatory test that we
Yes.
provided? Okay. So we'll offer this confirmatory test, certified copy of it as Exhibit 8.
Ms. Anthony, any objection to Exhibit 8?
No, ma'am, I have no objection.
We'll turn to Exhibit 9, please. After the summary suspension of Ms. Anthony's license, was a notice sent to her as well as a draft administrative complaint,
Yes.
and that outlined the allegations against her that have been presented today.
Correct.
And that's what's contained at Exhibit 9. Is that right?
Yes.
So we'll offer the notice and draft administrative complaint at Exhibit 9.
Ms. Anthony, any objection to Exhibit 9?
I have no objection, ma'am.
Thank you.
So where the draft administrative complaint and notice, those were sent to Ms. Anthony, is that right?
Yes.
Thereafter, did you have email communications with Ms. Anthony?
Yes, I did.
Well, let's turn to the page, or Exhibit 10, but the last page of that exhibit. And is this an email that you received from Ms. Anthony on November 27 of 2023?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she wanted to get a response to you?
Yes.
Had she responded to either of the complaints in writing as requested in the notices as of November 27 of 2023?
No, I hadn't received any a response.
In the last line of the first paragraph of that email on November 27, 2023, it says, "I will absolutely have it completed by Tuesday afternoon." That was a Monday, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you receive a response on that Tuesday, the next day on the 28th?
No.
Let's flip to the first page of the emails. You see in the middle of the page there, an email from November 29th of 2023, where you wrote Ms. Anthony and you said, "I did not receive your letter of response yesterday. Was it sent?" Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's a response from Ms. Anthony, and that's dated December 4. Is that right?
Correct.
And what was her explanation as to why she had not sent a response to either of the complaints as of December 4?
That she hit send, but she didn't think that the email finished sending before her internet and power went out. There was a snowstorm in her area that knocked out service. She indicated that the cable company is supposed to be here before 6. So as soon as they come and fix it, she can send, the email.
So in an email that she's sending to you, she says her internet will be up later when she can send an email. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, for that as exhibit 10.
Ms. Anthony, any objection to board exhibit 10? Do you have any
Oh,
objection?
sorry.
Any objection to board exhibit 10?
Okay, I have low bandwidth. No, ma'am, I have no objection.
All right, thank you.
Okay, but we'll turn to exhibit 11, please. On December 5 of 2023, we see a letter from the board to Ms. Anthony. And is this a notice scheduling her case for hearing on January 5 of 2024?
Yes.
Okay. And in association with that letter was also the administrative complaint, the formal one sent to Ms. Anthony?
Yes.
We'll get to that one in just a minute, but this is just the letter that they noticed over the hearing date, correct?
Yes.
So we'll offer the letter as exhibit 11.
Any objection to board exhibit 11, Ms. Anthony?
I do not have any objection, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. If you would, we're gonna go out of order for just a second. If you would flip to exhibit 13. Is exhibit 13 a copy of the formal administrative complaint that was sent to Ms. Anthony?
Yes.
So we'll offer that as exhibit 13.
Ms. Anthony, any objection to exhibit 13, which is the administrative complaint? Can you
I
hear
have
us?
no objection, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Back to exhibit 12, if you would. We scheduled the hearing for January 5 of this year. And is it correct that there was a Zoom issue and Ms. Anthony was not on the Zoom for the hearing that day? She was on a different Zoom, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So because of that, we rescheduled the hearing for today. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And is this letter, the notification to Ms. Anthony that we were rescheduling it for the hearing today?
Yes.
So we'll offer this letter as our exhibit 12.
All right, Ms. Anthony, any objection to exhibit 12?
I have no objection, ma'am.
Thank you.
As of today, have you received a written response to the complaints from Ms. Anthony?
No.
And has she indicated to you since the email from December 4 why she has not responded to either of the complaints?
No.
I'll turn to the witness.
Okay. Ms. Anthony, do you have any questions for Ms. D'Angelo?
I do, yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Hello, my question was concerning the first 2 notifications about the complaints that were made against me. Was there any proof that I received those notices? Or that they went to the correct address?
They went to the address on file, which is what you provided to the board. I would have to look at my actual complaint file to know if I got the return receipt. You know, but from memory, I don't know if she received them.
That's all I have for Ms. D'Angelo.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for Ms. D'Angelo?
Yeah, so you sent it via certified mail and regular mail or just certified? What you usually?
Send it by certified mail. And so my common, can I say what my common practice is? So my common practice is I'll send it by certified mail so that I know when they got it to be able to time the 15 days. But if I get the certified mail letter back marked unclaimed or what have you, then put it in the mail first class. Sometimes people don't get their certified mail.
So was it sent in regular mail, first class?
Well, that's what I would have to,
Check. And, any emails sent asking for?
no, at that point.
Emily, is D'Angelo on exhibit 12 and exhibit 13? Is that the address that you was, the information was sent to?
On exhibit 12, was this the address?
Yes.
Yes. At this point, she had provided, a different address to us.
Right. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Mr. Reams?
Just a couple. Whenever you sent information to Miss Anthony, was it always at the address you had on file that was provided by Miss Anthony?
Yes,
And is it correct that licensees are to keep their address current with the board?
yes. Actually, the rules say it has to be turned in within 15 days of the change.
Okay. So whenever you received a change of address from Miss Anthony, you then sent her information to that new address, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. We just looked at some email communications between you and Miss Anthony between November and December of 2023. And in one of the communications, she's talking about providing you with a response to the complaints, correct?
Correct.
So she was aware of what the complaints were and had received a copy of those and was telling you she was going to provide a response, correct?
Correct.
And again, even though she told you she was going to do it, as of today, she hasn't done it.
Correct.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, do you have any other witnesses, Mr. Reams?
That's it. We will, rest and let Miss Anthony put our case on.
Okay, so Ms. Anthony, at this time, Mr. Raines has concluded his case, and you have the opportunity to make a statement to the board. If you do so, that statement will be under oath. You're not required to make a statement, and it's totally your choice. So, do you wish to make a statement to the board?
Yes, ma'am, I sure do.
Right, then I'll ask the court reporter to swear you in at this time.
Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, you have the floor. You can make your statement at this time.
I'm gonna try to keep it together, so bear with me. In June 22nd of 2022, I lost my father. Shortly thereafter, my husband has PTSD, he's a military veteran, and he put my head into the floor and created a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. I was called into court. There were mediation hearings that I was subpoenaed to from the time that I was working for Ms. Thibodeau at her Baton Rouge office, just started there. On the way to work one day, I get hit in my rental car. So that kind of started the path from there with Ms. Thibodeau. Moving forward, it was like one thing after another. I couldn't catch my footing. So as I go forward, my children end up in December, they end up getting sent to live with me full time. Up until that point, they had not been. And during that same time, I lost my domestic violence hearing, my court hearings, on a technicality. And I had to move out of my home within, I think if I recall correctly, it was 6 days. And so I had the kids have to be put in school, find a new place to live, find the money to get that place to live. Just a lot going on. And I made sure that I was transparent and open with everybody that I had to be transparent with, or everybody that I was working with, that I had a responsibility to. I tried very hard to hold it together. I didn't get much sleep. Between grieving for my father and grieving the loss of my home, my life, everything I'd worked hard for, it was tough. I didn't relapse, not one. It didn't even cross my mind. When I moved to the new home, at that point, I started working for the ACT team, Family Preservation Services. From day one, I had issues at that place. Yes, I fell asleep at the desk. I sure did. I was watching training videos for days. It was the boringest thing I'd ever seen. So yeah, I had a couple hard times keeping my eyes open. I was exhausted and it was boring. I mean, I'm sorry. But that didn't mean I was using drugs. I provided and offered prescriptions from the pharmacy that I have been having for years, that I go to the same doctor, been getting the same medication for years of Adderall. Okay, I've been on it for 20 years. And then my pain management clinic that I was going to for years decided that he wants me to be off of the opiates, which I agreed to because I cannot take opiates like that. I didn't want to. I knew what the outcome would be if I continued to take them much longer. So they put me on the medical marijuana program. Well, they gave me the oil drops that I was supposed to take every evening. They didn't get me high or anything like that, but they did calm me down and it did help my pain. So I continued to take those with a prescription from the doctor and a medical marijuana card. So I provided all that to every employer. Now, where I feel like I did go wrong was I did not disclose to Mr. Morphew that I was a convicted felon. At the time, I knew better. I didn't think about it. The conversation at the interview we got into talking, everything. And I didn't think about it. And I feel like I should have. That should have been the first thing I blurted out of my mouth. I'm a convicted felon. It doesn't seem fair that I read the last line of his complaint was, Miss Anthony is a convicted felon. She went to prison for manufacturing methamphetamine. She should be investigated. Well, does he not think I disclosed that to the board to begin with? I did. And it was very obvious when he called me in there that day to give me that surprise drug test for all of a sudden these sores that I have around injection sites that's not true. That's not true. And picking, he never seen me pick because I don't do that. Now, is my skin messed up? It sure is. I've been on a medication for a long time that caused that, and there's a lawsuit going on for it. I can prove that as well. It's going on way before Stephen Morphew came in the picture. So his assumptions and accusations of what he thought was drug use, of me falling asleep, but yet I'm on meth, that doesn't make sense to me. But at the end of the day, I did tell her, Miss D'Angelo, I was going to provide a response to the accusations that I received. Now, I didn't receive this because, mind you, I moved from my home to a new home and then back to my home again. And then only lasted 2 weeks there and moved to Indiana where I needed to come home to my family because my whole life had fallen apart. And then when the investigation part came in with my license, it even got worse. So the separation turned into now a divorce. And I lost my children. I lost everything in my life because of this. So no, I did not provide a response. I wrote it, and then I contacted an attorney who said, do not submit a response, appear in person. So I did. The day that I was supposed to have the hearing last time, I clicked on the email that I received the night before, and it wasn't the same Zoom link. There was nothing I could do. I took pictures and screenshots of the time and date on my computer, and that I showed I was logged in. I did everything I could do, and I still have that email with the same Zoom link on it. So things were definitely happening in the background that was out of my control. I still did not relapse. The fentanyl, I have no idea. I cannot explain it to you. I can't. I don't know what happened. But I know good and well that is one thing I'm deathly afraid of. And I did not use fentanyl. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do MDMA. None of that. So being transparent from day one has always been so important to me. Did I drop the ball with Mr. Morphew in my background? Yes, I absolutely did. And I will continue to pay for that every day. But I'm telling you, being a social worker, that's who I am. Whether I have this license or not, I would never put the public in harm or in any kind of danger. I love people, but I want to see the best in them. I've worked so hard to become the person I am today, to move forward from being a convicted felon to being a forensic social worker. I worked at the district attorney's office for 5 years. Never one time has this ever been an issue. As a matter of fact, they told me to wear it as a badge of honor, which I never did. Obviously, we can understand why. I feel like being a convicted felon has been the biggest barrier I have faced as being a social worker. I've paid my time and I've moved past it. And I've reached people who have been there because I've been there. You know, it's just, I can't explain this to you guys any more than saying that a lot of this is out of my control. I feel like there's a bigger purpose for it. Something pushed me here. Everything had to fall apart in Louisiana for a reason. And I've struggled with that. I've been dealing with my grief, been going to grief counseling. I need to be the best version of myself so I can give that back to those who are still suffering. I know that. I'm just asking you to look at it. Look at what has been said today. I hope you find it in your heart to look at all of it. And see that not always what it looks like. If given a chance to continue to be a social worker, you will see that. You will see that this is not who I am. I am meant to be here to help people. And I've worked hard. Please don't take it from me because I did not do this.
Are you finished with your statement, Ms. Anthony? At this time, I'm gonna ask the board members if they have any questions for Ms. Anthony.
I have a question for Ms. Anthony. Ms. Anthony, this is Hyacinth McKee. On December 4th, 2023, there was an email that came from, it looks like your email address. And our legal counsel asked earlier, do you have any objection to Exhibit 11? And Exhibit 11 says from an email that came from your address that you are going to send a response to our board administrator and that you had internet power challenges and that as soon as the internet power challenges would be rectified, that you would send the response to our board. It also ended with, I truly apologize for the inconvenience. My question is, did you ultimately send a response to our administrator as you had told us, as you had stated in writing in your email that you would do?
I did not. And I did not, as I had stated earlier, only because I did have some issues with my computer crashing and then we had the storm. There were some things going on, but the reason I did not send that was because I was instructed by an attorney that I reached out to for a consult, not to send a response, but to appear in person. Now, I did not know the process of this. This is all new to me. This is not like regular public court or, city circuit court or anything like that. I did not know the process of this. And there's nobody there to help me. Nobody could answer any questions. The emails I were getting to call the investigator would be like, I can send it to you right now. He would send it to me and then ask me to respond. And I wouldn't even get these emails until after that time had already passed.
Ms. Anthony, I have one other question. Under that direction of that attorney that you said you reached out to, the advice to your report was that the attorney told you to no longer respond to any emails from us. And that the attorney said to you to appear in person. Is that what I'm understanding you said just now?
Ma'am, not to respond to the complaint.
Okay.
You know, the complaint, it said I had 15 days to respond to the complaint.
Mhm.
And that's what he told me do not respond to. And that's what Ms. D'Angelo was referring to.
So the
He
attorney,
said don't respond to the email. He just said do not respond to the complaint.
thank you. Thank you for clarification. Under that attorney that you just mentioned did advise you, and this is as your report, this is as what you're reporting to the board. The attorney advised you to appear in person. This is as per your report. My question is, did you appear to that advisement of your attorney that you just reported? Did you appear to the board in person?
Today, that's what I'm doing. I feel like today.
We had you on the agenda for January of 2024. Exhibit 11 indicates that this interaction between you and our administrator occurred in December of 2023. So my question is, under the advisement of the attorney that you said you reached out to, you just indicated to us that you advised, and I will state for the record, to not respond to the complaint, not the email. But your report was that your attorney said, appear in person. My question is, did you appear in person in January 2024 before the board to address any of these complaints?
I did attempt to. I was sent the wrong Zoom link. So I screenshotted and took pictures that I was trying to appear for that hearing that day. The hearing never took place and it was rescheduled for today, for this hearing right here. So that's still a continuation of that same situation. And I sent it to, I'm not gonna say was it because I cannot remember exactly if it was to the investigator or if it was to Mr. Raines or to Ms. D'Angelo. I think it was to probably both of them, Mr. Raines and Ms. D'Angelo. The picture of the timestamp and date and me being on Zoom waiting, and I have the email that I clicked on because they thought maybe I clicked on the wrong email with the wrong Zoom link, but I didn't. It was the one I got the night before with that same Zoom link. It was the wrong one.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Anthony. When you worked for the Family Preservation and the ACT team, and I think that was with the second complaint, when you worked for that, were you billing Medicaid during that time?
Was I what? I'm sorry.
On the ACT team, were you billing Medicaid?
I was not personally billing Medicaid, no ma'am. However, not for Family Preservation Services.
So before you started that job, did they do a criminal background check and a drug test?
No ma'am. They did the criminal background check after I started. But they did because I think it became, well, because I tell everybody if they ask, you know, I'm an open book. So it came out, I believe, with one of the coworkers or something, like during a conversation in the vehicle, we ride around to the community, we meet them where they're at in the community. So we drive around all day, and I believe it came out to one of the coworkers, and I was a convicted felon. So then they decided to do the background check, and it came back as it was, and they didn't like that. But no drug test was done prior.
Thank you for that. You asked Ms. D'Angelo if she knew if you received the complaint in Exhibit 12. There is an address on there on Exhibit 12. Is that your correct address? And did you receive the complaint?
Can I see the address? Because I don't have it in front of me.
Well, let me ask you the second question. Let me ask you the second question. Did you receive the complaint?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
I did not.
thank you.
And at the time, I was moving from my original home and had put in a change of address to my new home. So I believe maybe it got lost and shuffled up in the mail because by the time I got it, I had already moved out of my second home back into my first.
So you said, I just want clarification. The attorney told you not to respond to the complaint, to appear in
Correct.
person.
Correct.
The question I'm asking is, did you ever receive the complaint that he told you not to respond to? At any point?
Yes, that was a later, they sent me several of them. So that was the one that I got, it was certified mail and I had to sign for it. So that's when I contacted the attorney and asked him, what am I supposed to do? Now, it took me a while to figure out what kind of attorney to contact because I had no clue. I mean, what do you do in this? And they don't advertise for this kind of stuff. I didn't know. So it took me a while to figure it out and I finally got in touch with him.
Thank you.
In the complaint that came from Mr. Stephen Barfu, he noted that you were observed to take handfuls of medications. Can you speak to what, that could have been referencing?
Right. I was on antibiotics for my skin because my skin has been messed up for over 5 years due to the medication, as I was explaining earlier. And I was on antibiotics at the time, and I take 5 Adderall pills a day. It's not handfuls of pills, that's over exaggerated. But if they ever see me take anything, which I try not to let anybody see because of this kind of situation right here, they always see something that's not what it is without checking first. You know what I mean? So I tried to hide it, but of course, at the time it wasn't. Now, I will say this, the director and I did not get along whatsoever. She was constantly on me. I mean, I knew there was some tension there between us. It was addressed, I addressed it with her, asked her what was going on, what kind of thing make it different. And I thought it was different, but it wasn't. It wasn't at all. They got up to me about, at the end, the day they fired me, it was about, before they asked me about the drug test, it was about me smoking or vaping. After seeing a client, my coworker and I were getting back in the vehicle. Well, the lady always smoked her cigarettes before then. I thought it was okay. So I smoked my vape. And I guess it wasn't okay. So I fell asleep in the car one day. I did. I still do. Like a 5-year-old kid. I don't understand why. But every time I get in the car and I start driving for a while, there I go.
Thank you.
That doesn't look good.
Did they ask you to take a drug screen?
They did the day that they got the background check back. Mm-hmm. They did. But by the time that happened, there was already so much done in between all of us. I didn't care what they did. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't care. I told them I'll go take that drug test, but I still don't want to work here.
So you were okay with taking? Because the complaint notes that you refused the drug test, but you're saying you were agreeable to take it?
I did agree to take that drug test. I sure did.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Anthony, you said that you did, when you testified, you said you didn't relapse, not once.
No. I did not.
Okay, so are you currently in recovery for substance use or abuse?
I've been in recovery for 17 years. Yes, ma'am. And I would not waste that.
So in part of your recovery, the THC that you're taking for your skin, is that correct? Is it what?
No, it was I had a back surgery and I have a lot of nerve damage throughout my body. And so it was to treat that. They have been doing trigger point. They've done, put a spinal cord stimulator in my back. I've been through on that pain management program for quite a while. And the fear was me getting hooked on opiates. I didn't want that. I know that that's a real problem for a lot of people, and I don't want that. So I discussed it with my doctor, and he offered the medical marijuana program. I was under doctor observation. It wasn't me out there getting high, smoking, what. It wasn't that. It was So the drops I had to take at nighttime. But of course, it makes you test positive for it too.
And the doctor was aware of your substance abuse history that when he prescribed it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I did. Okay, so, Ms. Anthony, you stated, in your testimony that, that you did not, receive, the documentation, from the office, the letters, the certified mail. So my question is, did you update your, mailing address, your contact information to the board as you were supposed to within the 15 days?
I don't recall if I updated it after I was informed. At that time when she sent the letters out, I'm gonna be honest, and I moved, when I first moved, I did not. I didn't even think about it. I really didn't. There's so much going on. And I should have. I just didn't think about it when I first moved. Now, after I got the letter and saw that it had been floating around in the mail and all that, yeah, I did update it.
So you did receive the letters?
Later, it was way later, past that 15-day mark. And that's what I'm saying. So for me forwarding my mail and getting the mail transferred, it had got shuffled up, and then I moved back to my original home, did another mail transfer. It got switched up then I received the letter. It was long after that time period. It was actually the second letter that was sent out because there was 2 complaints on it when I got it. So she stated she sent out the first letter, only had 1 complaint on it. The second letter had 2 complaints, and that's the one I received. Way after the date.
Okay, so I wanted to address your employment at the Family Preservation Services Assertive Community Treatment Center with Mr. Stephen Morphew. And you stated that you were previously prescribed Adderall and some other pain medication. And Mr. Morphew stated that you were seen taking some medication, handfuls of medication, but you stated otherwise. Did you ever provided him a copy of that prescription that you were taking pain medication?
It wasn't pain medication, it was antibiotic for my skin and Adderall. So yes, I did provide him that. I did.
You did?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because that was the first thing I did when he started making comments about it. And I remember telling him, I gave you the prescription, from CVS. I printed it out. I've been going there for years. The same doctor, same pharmacy. There's a long history for it. It wasn't anything new. So I know for a fact that he was provided that. And Ms. Thibodeau as well.
That's all the questions that I have.
Any other board members? Yes, I've got some questions. Ms. Anthony? You were convicted of, I think you said, manufacturing methamphetamines. Was that the only charge, or have you been convicted of other charges?
I have been convicted of other charges stemming from that first initial arrest. So I grew up in foster care, turned 18, and I went back to live with my mom. And her husband at the time was manufacturing meth. And he got raided. The house got raided. We all went to jail. I was over the age of 18, and there I went. It wasn't because I was seriously cooking it, but I was in the home where it was happening, and I too was charged with it.
How old
Now, moving forward, and I provided all the court documentation to the board at the time I was getting my license. A big binder full, so that they knew every detail that I was saying was not BS. It was true. And so after that, though, when I got out of prison the first time, I did go back to prison because I did my own drug at the time.
You were
And I fell into an addiction.
Were you manufacturing them or using them or selling them?
No, it was possession. It was a possession charge.
What were you?
Oh wait, that's when I got clean.
What were you in possession of at that time?
meth.
Okay, so meth, you were using meth and you were over 18. How old were you?
I don't remember.
Approximately.
Yeah.
Were you still in your teens, your 20s?
The first time I went, I was 18. Oh, no, I was 20.
Okay.
The first time I went. Moving forward in 2008, I believe I was 28 because that's when I was pregnant and had my daughter in prison. So I believe I was about 28.
When did you go to, when did you go to?
Because I'm not good with dates and years and birthdays, so to be honest about that, but.
When did you get your MSW? When did you get your MSW?
Ma'am,
When did you graduate with your MSW?
I graduated in December, or August, MSW, okay. Bachelor's was December, and my MSW was May of 22.
Okay, so that was recent,
It was
after all those incidents.
Oh, yeah, long after I got out of prison, and through my bachelor's degree, I was on parole, and I finished 5 years of parole while getting my bachelor's degree and continued to move forward, and then got offered the job at the DA's office.
At the DA's office, you said? Is that right? You said earlier,
Homicide, domestic violence, and sex crime cases for years.
you said you were at the DA's office for 5 years after your MSW?
No, it wasn't like a kid, like hired there for 5 years, but I've worked with them for 5 years. So I'm still like doing stuff with them, research for them, the attorneys, I do all kinds of stuff for them. Not hired, but I still work with them.
So you weren't practicing as a
Then
social worker?
I got Duluth and went to work for Southeastern and did the same thing for domestic violence defendants.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out this timeline. You got your MSW in 22, May of 22, then 6 months later, you started having all these problems?
Yeah, right after my dad died. My dad died the same day I took the test for my LMSW. He died about an hour before the test.
And you're saying you did not relapse during that time, and that you did receive a complaint though from us, and you did intend to respond, but the attorney told you not to.
Yeah, I even still have it on computer. I can share my screen and show it to you. I did. I sat down here and I poured my heart into it.
Okay, thank you.
I have something to ask you, Mr. Anthony, and it's weighing on me. Because it appears that it's something that you hadn't dealt with.
Here's the question.
So, you didn't inform Mr. Morphew about your past conviction. Why is that?
I just got lost in the conversation and I can't explain it to you why, because that's usually the first thing I say. I don't ever want that to be hidden, because I don't want situations like this coming about where you didn't disclose it, you're hiding it. I wasn't trying to hide it. It just didn't come up. And I remembered at the beginning of the interview, and we kept talking and got carried away in the conversation of the interview. And then it was over, and that was it. I didn't think about it.
Did you explain it to Ms. Thibodeau? Did you have that discussion with her?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I told her everything. I really like Ms. Thibodeau, but not only did I like her, but I'm open and transparent with everybody because I don't want to be somebody that's hiding anything or secretive or looking over my shoulder. That's not me. It is what it is. I can't change it.
When you got your license in Louisiana, did you get your license under any special consideration? Were you awarded just upon the application?
No, ma'am.
You didn't have to come before the board to get your license approved?
Right, I did. I had to give them all the court documentation from every arrest, from every case. I had to pay for that from the court and submit it to the board, and I did all that. Everything. And
thank you.
That's the only thing I've done.
Thank you.
And I was approved.
I have another question. Earlier, you said you take 5 Adderall a day. Is that as prescribed?
Yes, oh, yes, absolutely. I was prescribed 150 milligrams a day. I've been on it for 20 years. So after doing the genocide test and seeing that I metabolized it very quickly, it didn't last as long as it usually did. That was the recommendation from the doctor, and I stayed with the same doctor, same prescription for many years.
So when do you take,
Over 10.
when you take these in pill form, how many times a day? When do you take it during the day?
I don't have a set schedule, only because sometimes I would take all 5. Sometimes I didn't. It just depended on, was I doing sport 12 or 15 hours, or was I at work? And it kind of just depended on how I was feeling, and where I was at in my day.
So you're on prescription.
I don't have a set schedule.
You're
for
on
it.
prescription THC and 150 milligrams of Adderall a day, and you take the dosage whenever you feel like you need it during the day.
Yeah, it would usually be about every 3 hours is what it came out to. About every 3 hours. And then and I could usually feel it. Feel it tapering off and feel getting drowsy and, lethargic. And then I would take my other dose and keep going. But I didn't it wasn't like speed, that wasn't like a fast high or anything like that, but it was like it leveled me out, calmed me down a little bit. And that's how I was. That's how it still does me. I have ADHD. I've been tested many times, and like I said, I'm under doctor's care for it. It wasn't nothing I was doing for recreational fun. After a while, I could take one and go to sleep. That's just ADHD. I don't know how to explain that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Raines, do you have any questions?
I do. Ms. Anthony, you said while you were in your coursework that you were still on probation. When did you, on parole, when did you complete your parole?
In 2020, I want to say it was March of 2020, if I'm not mistaken, right before I graduated, just a few months. And I do know it was March, as a matter of fact. It was March of 2020.
You graduated with your master's in 22, is that right?
No, December of 2020.
What you said your master's was May of 22.
Oh, my master, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. In May of 2022. My master's. Yeah.
Okay.
Bachelor's was December of 2000.
All right.
So you served time? Did you serve time for your conviction? Is that how long were you?
8 years.
You were 8 years for possession of meth. How much meth did you have on you?
Just the personal use. But in Texas, that's where I was arrested and did my time in Texas. And I had violated, you remember going back to the original manufacturing charge, I had violated that. And for failing the drug test and not having a stable place to live. And because I wasn't from there. So that happened. And then went back again for my own possession charge. It was just a personal amount in my pocket. And I did get charged with possession and how do they word it? It's worded manufacturing and delivery, but it wasn't as I was looking at it. That's just the way that the law is written in Texas. And you can look it up at texaslawhelp.org. They will explain that to you. That's just the way they word it. So delivery, if you get a possession charge in Texas, you're also going to get a delivery charge. So it goes hand in hand.
Who was your first job as an MSW with?
The 21st Judicial District Attorney's Office.
Okay, so you were actually, because you talked about working with them when you were not paid. So
Right, an intern.
So you were directly employed by the 21st JDC as an employee from when to when?
Well, I can't remember. But I do know I started as an intern and then they opened a full-time position for me as a first social worker in their parish to work as a DA's office. So, and then I was right before I got my master's internship is when I gave my 2 weeks notice for that and then moved into my internship for my master's degree. So I would say about January or March of 22.
Okay. Now I'm asking you, after you got your master's in May of 22, what was your next job?
My next job was working at St. Tammany Parish Emergency Room.
And you did that before you worked for Ms. Thibodeau?
I did.
How long
And
did
then I
you,
worked for Southeastern.
so you worked for St. Tammany and then Southeastern?
Mm-hmm. And that was, I also did the DBIP program for the perpetrators and for domestic violence out of Baton Rouge, Missouri.
Okay, so that's 3 jobs before Ms. Thibodeau, correct?
Yeah.
So between May of 22 and December of 22, which is when you started for Ms. Thibodeau, you had 3 different jobs, correct?
Probably, I guess, maybe I did. I only worked at St. Tammany for 1 week.
Okay.
That was it, because the opportunity to go to Southeastern, which was what I wanted to do, came available. So that's what I chose to do.
And how long did you work for Southeastern?
Well, just a few months, because the domestic violence stuff happened and I lost my job over it. They said if I can't control domestic violence in my own home, I should be teaching people not to abuse. So there that went.
Okay. So I'll come back to some other things, but you're not currently living in Louisiana, correct?
No, sir, I have not lived in Louisiana since July.
The last time you practiced in Louisiana is July
With Daily Preservation Board.
with Mr. Morphew when you were terminated, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you talk about your employment with Ms. Thibodeau and the drug screen that you took, you said that you had an Adderall prescription and you have a prescription for THC. Did you have an actual prescription for THC at the time you worked for Ms. Thibodeau?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir.
And you
I
provided,
would have taken that prescription on January 1st of that year when it became available.
so when you were part of your parole process, you took drug tests, did you not?
I sure did.
And
5 years.
you knew that you could provide a script to the testing agency to explain certain drugs if they showed up positive in your system, correct?
Well, yeah,
Right,
of course.
but you did not provide a script for THC or to Adderall to your employer to explain those scripts or those positive tests, right?
I did. That's what I said. I did offer her that. I absolutely did from day one.
And you agree that you cannot explain the fact that you have a positive test for fentanyl,
No, I
correct?
cannot. But I also can't tell you what happened from the time that I took that test and handed it to the lady in the bathroom. I can't tell you what happened with it after that. The cup was not marked with my name on it, no identifier. The cup left my view, I have no clue. I can't tell you if that's even my cup or my urine. But I can tell you this, I never took it. I'm scared to death of that. No way.
So you agree that you should have shown up positive for THC, you agree you should have shown up positive for amphetamine, you just dispute the fentanyl, is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And I also can tell you this, those 2 drugs I've been on, I've been on for years. The THC was only the oil drops, and in the evening, it didn't even get you high or buzzed or any of that kind of stuff that people think it might do. So as far as me putting any kind of anybody in danger or not being able to live up to my potential as a social worker, that's not true. I didn't do that. because it wasn't affecting me like that. I have ADHD, therefore the medication is needed for the purpose that I need it for. And I've been on it for a long time. It wasn't anything new.
Okay, going to your second employment, that is a subject of the complaint. This obviously was your fifth employment after your master's, but your second employment with Mr. Morphew, with the ACT team. If you agreed to take the test, why did you not take the drug test?
Because it was he already had that plan. This was not about that drug test. This stuff been going on since the first or second day that I even started there, because they thought I should have been further along in the training videos than what I was. But like I told them when I started, I had another job was working that I needed to tie up. I had documentation that had to be done. I couldn't focus on their training videos that weekend. So I started it that Monday, and the director didn't start it. A confrontation between us. And so it was more than just the drug test.
Okay, but my question is this. You were asked to take a drug test.
And I told him I would.
Then why did you not take it?
He didn't move forward with it. I can't force him to go with me. I told him I would go take it. It was off of the office, at a facility testing lab. And he was gonna go with me. Well, it never got to that. I don't know what to say. I can't control that.
So
I was willing and open to go.
So he wrote a complaint saying that you were exhibiting drug-taking behavior. He said that you refused to take the test, and based on that, you were terminated. And you're saying that you agreed to take the test, but you also agreed that you didn't take it, right?
Yeah, I didn't take it because he didn't move forward to go with me to take it.
Okay.
I told him I won't take that test, but it's not going to change anything. I don't want that job. I wasn't going to continue to work there. So he didn't go. I didn't go. I mean, what else can I do?
Earlier, you talked about not receiving the complaints from the board, but you ultimately did receive the complaints from the board because you promised to provide a response to them, did you not?
Mr. Raines, you know that there was multiple complaints sent to me. So the first complaint, I did not receive. The second complaint, I received long after the 15-day mark had been passed. Moving forward, I didn't receive a third one, but I do remember receiving one I had to sign for. I did get that. And that's the one I responded to Ms. D'Angelo about. Telling her that I would give her the response, and I didn't provide the response.
So do you think it's important that when your board asks for a response in writing, that you provide a response to them?
Well, I think it would be important for somebody to explain the process to us if we don't know it. We don't know this process. I didn't know it was going to be like a real court hearing. If that was the case, why are we not represented? Why are we not given a process of something that explains all this time? I don't know.
Well,
I had to figure it out by myself, Mr. Raines, and I tried.
Actually, you said I had an attorney and they explained it to you, did you not?
Yeah, and it took me a very long time to find him. And I guess obviously he advised me incorrectly.
I don't have further questions.
I have a question for you. Are you in a recovery program right now?
I have been going to recovery program because
Currently?
I feel it's necessary for the grief part of it and like getting my health back, my mental health back, right? So yes, I've been going to NA.
You're going to NA daily? Tell me about that, please.
Not daily, I go weekly.
Weekly? Okay. In
I also
person?
go to grief counseling, and I also attend an online group called Groups Recover Together, which I think is happening, so I do go.
And you've gone to NA for 17 years?
No, I have not.
How long have you been
And
going
it
to
didn't
NA?
work for me at that time, early on. Right now, when I'm vulnerable and I'm weak and everything's falling apart in my life, where I could become a high risk for relapse, oh, I'm in that room. You bet.
So you've been going regularly for how long?
3 months.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Anthony, is there anything else that you want to tell the board before we close this hearing? Or any documentation you want to present?
As I've stated to everybody else, if there's anything that I need to present, I didn't know, I should have had it ahead of time. Seeing how this process has gone about today, now I would have. I do have it available. It's on my CVS account, if anybody needs the long history for those medications or the medical marijuana. No, ma'am.
Any additional evidence?
No additional evidence.
Witnesses?
No.
So, both parties agree that we can close this hearing? Board members agree? Yes. Okay, so the hearing will be closed, just so you'll understand the process. There will be a written decision issued in this case. I just want to make sure that we do have the correct address to get the information to you. So could you state your correct address for the record?
It's 57710 Rivercrest, one word, Rivercrest Drive. That's Elkhart, Elkhart, Indiana, 46516.
Thank you. So the board will deliberate the case later in executive session unless you have an objection to that. And then if they reach a decision today, it might, the disposition might be said at the board meeting later. If they need additional time, it might not be decided today. But if you want to listen to the board meeting, I don't know if you're aware that it is live streamed and you could sign on. Okay. So at this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing there if that's.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Anthony, for your appearance today. The hearing is officially closed, and as stated by our legal counsel, you will receive notification of decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we can, I'm going to ask for a motion regarding the January 5th minutes, and then I'm going to ask for a break. We get our other board back. And, yeah, information. Thank you for that. So, we have to get Evan back first, so, yeah. So let's, no. Let me go get Evan real quick. And then
we can dismiss the court reporter, correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if you wanted the decision on record, if you made a decision today, or if I was good.
I don't know.
No, it's being recorded with the board. I think I'm comfortable with that it's being
Put it in
recorded.
writing, it's.
And it will be sent in writing.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
So as we wait to, for Evan to return. Are we still live? We are still live. Okay, thank you. We are still live. And so, at this time, we are just going to move to the next item on the agenda. And it is the review, the minutes of the meeting held for January 5th, 2024. If there are no corrections or adjustments that need to be made to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion at this time. So moved by Evan to adopt the minutes of the meeting that was held January 5th, second by Trinity. Any public comments pertaining to this motion? Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. At this time, I am going to ask for a brief recess. We are at, we're at 11, what time we at? 10:55. So I'm going to ask for a brief 10-minute recess. The time now is 10:55. The full board will return at 11:05. Thank you so much for your grace and patience. Emily, could you please mute,